All right, let's jump right into this explainer because we really need to fundamentally reframe how we look at rest. We've got to stop seeing sleep as this, passive off switch at the end of the day. It's not. It is an active, incredibly high stakes biological operating system. Literally, it dictates your emotional resilience and your physical longevity. Today, we're going to uncover the hidden cellular mechanisms of exactly what happens when we sleep, and honestly, more importantly, the devastating cascade that hits your brain and body when we don't. Here is our systems map for today. We'll be covering 1. The stress-sleep loop. 2. Slow-wave glymphatic detox. 3. REM and emotional recalibration. 4. The autonomic nervous system reset. 5. The 46-minute resilience threshold. And finally, 6. Re-engineering your sleep architecture. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The stress-sleep loop, the architecture of burnout. Okay, let's start with the big macro problem here. You know that incredibly frustrating feeling you're completely exhausted all day, but the absolute second your head hits the pillow, boom, you're just tired but wired? Well, this counterintuitive mystery is actually fueled by high-pressure environments that cause what's known as an incomplete stress discharge. Basically, when you're managing chaos all day, whether you're a high performer, healthcare worker, whatever, your nervous system gets locked in the state of hypervigilance. Your body is just pumping out corticotropin-releasing hormone, or CRH, which keeps you trapped in fight-or-flight mode. So even though your body is physically exhausted, your brain still thinks it's under threat, and that makes the transition into restorative sleep nearly impossible. Now, this biological wear and tear actually has a name. It's called allostatic load. When we fail to transition out of that high alert state, it feeds a really toxic feedback loop. Chronic stress disrupts your sleep, right? And then disrupted sleep hyperactivates your stress response for the very next day. This just chronically elevates your baseline cortisol, completely derails your circadian rhythm, and ultimately accelerates burnout. Moving to Section 2, slow-wave glymphatic detox, the deep brain cleaning cycle. This is where it gets incredibly fascinating. If we zoom right into your cellular physiology during the first half of the night, we see the mechanics of the glymphatic system. Think of this as a bioluminescent deep cleaning process for your brain. As you enter non-REM slow-wave sleep, your norepinephrine levels drop, and that triggers this rhythmic pulsing. This pulsing signals astrocyte cells to open specific fluid channels governed by aquaporin-4 proteins. Cerebrospinal fluid then rushes in, literally power washing your brain tissue to sweep away all the dangerous metabolic toxins that built up while you were awake. And here is the staggering part. The interstitial cellular space in your brain physically expands by 60% during deep sleep. 60%. If you shortcut this stage, maybe due to insomnia or sleep apnea, this crucial expansion just cannot occur, and fluid flow drops by up to 70%. The direct consequence of that, neurotoxins like beta amyloid and tau proteins, which are causally linked to Alzheimer's and cognitive decline, are just left sitting there to accumulate in your brain. Section 3, REM and emotional recalibration, rewiring the neurological software. Transitioning from the physical washing machine of the brain, let's look at how rapid eye movement sleep governs our emotional stability. Looking at neuroimaging scans like these, we can actually trace the exact mechanism of emotional instability. When you're rested, the medial prefrontal cortex, which is your logical brain, exerts top-down control over the amygdala, your emotional threat center. But sleep deprivation physically severs this connectivity. Without that prefrontal break, the amygdala is left highly reactive, and that triggers a massive 60% amplification in emotional volatility. Which brings us to an absolutely wild survival mechanism that happens during REM sleep. While you dream, your brain actively shuts off a brainstem center called the locus coeruleus. This completely drops your noradrenaline levels, which is basically the brain's version of adrenaline. It creates this safe, totally stress-free neurochemical environment where the brain can process the previous day's experiences, depotentiating the emotional charge of your memories. So you remember the facts of what happened, sure, but you are stripped of the visceral emotional anxiety attached to those facts. Let's compare these two states side by side, because this stark contrast perfectly explains why minor inconveniences can cause explosive anger when you're tired. When you're sleep-deprived, high noradrenaline blocks your prefrontal cortex and your amygdala runs wild. Your brain has literally lost its chemical ability to distinguish between a real, life-threatening danger and a mild annoyance, like, say, someone cutting you off in traffic. REM sleep restores this precise salience detection so you can actually react appropriately to the world around you. Section 4. The autonomic nervous system reset, mapping the brain to the body. Let's zoom back out to the endocrine system for a second to see how this brain activity directly orchestrates your body's survival responses. This maps out how poor sleep derails the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Normally, deep sleep is the exact window where this axis resets, dropping cortisol to its absolute lowest point. But disturbed sleep forces erratic cortisol production. It chronically elevates CRH and ACTH, flooding your entire system with adrenaline and noradrenaline. And that keeps your sympathetic nervous system locked in a fight-or-flight state, which drives up blood pressure and completely disrupts your metabolic homeostasis. So how do we actually measure all of this? We use heart rate variability, or HRV. A high HRV proves your body's vagal brake is working efficiently to calm inflammation and shift you into a parasympathetic rest and digest state. It shows you have the biological flexibility to handle stress and bounce back. But chronic sleep debt suppresses this vital vagal function, absolutely plummeting your HRV and leaving your nervous system operating in a state of sustained, exhausting vigilance. Section 5. The 46-minute resilience threshold. The behavioral output. Now that we've established the biological mechanisms, let's look at exactly what it takes to reverse this damage. 46. A really rigorous study out of Baylor University revealed a highly counterintuitive threshold. You don't necessarily need an entirely new life or some strict 10-hour sleep regimen. Adding just 46 extra minutes of sleep a night is enough to radically transform your psychological baseline. Just look at the cascade effect here. Those 46 minutes don't just clear up your brain fog. By restoring the negative feedback loop in your HPA axis and reconnecting your prefrontal cortex, this extra time cascades into massive behavioral shifts. The study proved that well-rested people become significantly more resilient, experience higher life satisfaction, and, incredibly, are up to 45% more likely to engage in generous, pro-social behaviors like charitable giving. Think about that. Sleep quite literally makes us better humans. Section 6. Re-engineering your sleep architecture. The actionable exit. To wrap up our systems map, let's look at how we can practically implement cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, or CBTI, to reclaim our biology. Clinical research highlights CBTI as the absolute gold standard intervention here. By systematically targeting the perpetuating factors, things like watching TV in bed, laying awake frustrated for hours, or keeping really irregular schedules, CBTI provides an evidence-based pathway to neutralize the conditioned arousal that's keeping you awake. It is all about breaking that association between your bed and anxiety, allowing your central nervous system to safely power down and trigger those vital glymphatic and REM cycles we just explored. I want to leave you with this thought because it perfectly captures everything we've uncovered in this explainer today. As we conclude this map of our neurobiology, really ask yourself, if sleep is the ultimate biological foundation for human flourishing, preventing neurodegeneration, and regulating your very emotional survival, what small change are you going to make tonight to protect yours?